So, next month, April 2025, a bunch of us are having a read-along of Finnegans Wake by James Joyce. So I thought as a sort of lead into that, it might be interesting to think, why read a book that is not only big, but famously difficult? You know, people say things like it's unreadable, or it's willfully obscure, that sort of thing. Even the kind of things people who are supporters of the book say can sometimes make it seem a little bit off-putting. For instance, the intro to the Oxford World Classics one, you get, it has been described as the dreamlike saga of guilt-stained evolving humanity, an arc to contain all human myths and types, organic, living with its own life, a cold pudding of a book, music, a war on language, a hypernesic machine, the most profoundly anti-fascist book produced between the two wars. So, lots of different opinions. Well, that's fair enough. For the Joycean Fritz Sen, Finnegans Wake is what we do with it. So there's a little bit of a it's what you make of it, which is okay, but where does that leave us? It doesn't sort of give us any ground to stand on. So yeah, why read a book that's difficult? Because it uses language in a sort of super hyper complicated way with layers of meaning. Lots of the words are basically coined by Joyce for use in this book. So it's not a straightforward read. It's sometimes said, you don't exactly read it. You can't enter into it the way you would with a novel as such. It's sort of, you're more like looking at it and appreciating it from the outside. So given that there are many books in the world that aren't Finnegans Wake, and therefore are not, by definition, not going to be as difficult, why not read one of them? Why not read, for instance, the movie tie-in paperback with Finian's Rainbow?
Look, look, look to the rainbow.
That's Finian's Rainbow.
A musical movie came out in 1968. Finian's Rainbow. The title is similar. It has Petula Clark in it. It has, it has Irish themes. It's got Tommy Steele as a leprechaun.
Alas, poor Ireland. Poor Ireland. Poor Ireland. We're suffering Ireland.
So that would be an option, but there's something, putting this aside for now, there's something about Finnegans Wake that sort of is compelling and seems to be, worth a try. So we're going to be doing a read-along, and not the whole thing. It's like a core sample of the book. We're reading some selected chapters, and an earlier video gives the rationale for the choice of those chapters. Not sure if that's a good idea or not, but that's what some of us are going to do. So yeah, let's look and see what some experts might say about why this book is worth reading. Starting with William York Tyndall, whose book Reader's Guide to Finnegans Wake. I've used this before because I've done a bit of a read through myself, and it's good. It's a really, really useful book. However, statements like Finnegans Wake is about anybody, anywhere, anytime, or as Joyce puts it, about every those personal place objects wheresoevers. Anybody, anywhere, anytime. Again, it's in that sort of, it's so huge. That's not really giving us an entree. His guidebook does, but that to me isn't necessarily a must read that one. What about Joe, not Josie and the Pussycats, Joseph Campbell and Henry Morton Robinson and his Skeleton Key to Finnegans Wake, which is a sort of a compression and a kind of guide through it to sort of unpack the narrative, so you actually can follow through the book with some idea of what's going on in the sort of normal novelistic sense. The blurb talks about the fascinating world of Finnegans Wake. Okay, well, I'm there for a fascinating world. Let's see what kind of statements we get in here. The Wake began to find its own audience. This book's been around quite a long time. Joyce's big black book caught on, simply because its author bespeaks the human predicament. Underneath the verbal ambiguities and philologic traps of the Wake, deep speaks to deep about such everyday matters as marital discord, sibling strife, military slaughter, racial violence, theological differences, financial thimble rigging. Fascinating material. There exists no substitute for the richly rewarding experience of plunging headlong into the Wake and wrenching loose some trophy of meaning from its still unexplored deeps. So that sort of makes it sound as if, you know, we, the readers, will plunge in, at least to parts of it, and hopefully we will find something. Amidst a sea of uncertainties, of one thing we can be sure, there are no nonsense syllables in Joyce. His language means so much that any intelligent reader can shave off some rewarding layers of meaning. So, yes, so here we are. Hopefully any intelligent readers we're gonna carve off little bits of meaning from the super meaningful language of the book. Okay, Anthony Burgess writes a lot about Joyce and has written some great books about him, including Here Comes Everybody as an introduction to all of the James Joyce books. So let's see what he's got to say. I must not, anywhere in this part of my book, give the impression that Finnegans Wake is a humourless monster crammed with learning, merely seasoned with a few puns. It is always funny, where it is not touching and inspiring, and it's provocative of loud laughter. So, okay, well, one likes to laugh. So we're taking Anthony Burgess at his word. We'll plunge into it looking for the laughs. It's not all super high flown material. Joyce, writing one of the most difficult books of all time, at least bases it on very lowly material. He takes his theme of death and resurrection from a vaudeville song, so that's the song Finnegans Wake, about the drunk hod carrier who falls and cracks his skull and is taken to his own wake, where he wakes and rises. So one of the many resurrecting figures within the book. What was I saying? Lowly material, yes, death and resurrection from a vaudeville song. And working out his theme makes more references to popular art than to the best that has ever been thought and said. Which is kind of like, that was also in Ulysses, really. Loads of popular songs and bits of adverts and things like that keep sort of cropping up and being used as motifs or sort of sources for the type of language that's being used. So, yeah, okay. Burgess seems to be on the case for us. He also did his shorter Finnegans Wake, which is sort of what it says, with introductory bits for each of the sections. That's really good. And again in this he makes his point about it being amusing. But, this is the other point, he also wanted to write a great comic book. Not a comic book, it's a comic book. A book that is comical, to excite laughter more than to knot brows. Before we start reading, we ought to put off the mask of solemnity and prepare to be entertained. This is one of the most entertaining books ever written. Right, so if nothing else, we're basically taking this as the challenge. So yes, happy to put off the mask of solemnity. Looking for this. It's one of the most entertaining books ever. That sounds good. We'll have beauty as well. What more could you want? What was I going to say? Oh yeah, read along. Starts in April, and to keep it simple, we're going to start reading on page 104. Don't worry about editions. They're all kind of calibrated so the pages have the same numbers, so that all these guidebooks and what have you can actually work. So yeah, that's the section we're starting with, and like I said, we've got a Discord group talking about it. I'm sure there'll be videos and chats and what have you as well. I'd hope to pop back with some kind of, well, here's what I thought, or that was a stupid idea. But we will see. So that's the read along. The group involved. I mean, originally I asked Alan if he fancied doing it. Alan from Big Hard Books and Classics. He was super keen. I mean, he's read it like loads of times. He's already made videos about this event as well. We've got Jennie Jables. We've got Pat, book chat with Pat. We've got Roz, scally-dandling about the books. And we got Debs, Raina reads stuff, at least. So there's a kind of, not the Ulysses 6, it's a slightly different Finnegans 6, I think. So that's what it's all about. Start in April. You don't need to read very much. You know, the schedule, which I'll put down below. Three pages a day would do it, with some weeks off. You know, so we will see. Going back to the Joseph Campbell, hopefully we'll end up in a place where we're thinking this sort of thing. Through notes that finally become tunable to our ears, we hear James Joyce uttering his resilient, all-enjoying, all-animating yes. The yes of things yet to come, a yes from beyond every zone of disillusionment, such as few have had the heart to utter.
Look, to Petula Clark.
Jennie says good for you.